I wasn't supposed to be there that early. The laundromat usually didn't see me until afternoon, when the students thinned out and the air stopped smelling like fabric softener trying too hard. But that morning, something felt too heavy in my apartment, the silence, maybe, so I grabbed my bag and walked over before 8. She was already there. I noticed her the way you notice a familiar song playing softly from another room. Not all at once, just a slow, quiet realization that she had been part of the background for longer than I knew. Mid-40s, maybe older. Dark hair pulled into a loose twist, a cardigan slipping off one shoulder like it had tried to give up but she tugged it back into place. She was staring at one of the dryers, arms folded, thumb brushing the edge of a thermos she held like a habit. I almost looked away too fast, but her eyes flicked up. A small nod. Not a smile, just acknowledgement, the kind people give neighbors or strangers they've seen too many times to pretend otherwise. "You're early today," she said. Her voice was soft, not sleepy, more like she had already been awake for hours. "Couldn't stay in," I said. Felt loud. She huffed a tiny breath, almost a laugh. "Yeah. I know that kind of morning." I took the machine 2 down from hers, though plenty were empty. I didn't want to seem obvious. I also didn't want to be farther away. We fell into that quiet, shared silence laundromats create, the hum of machines trying their best to be white noise, the soft click of zippers tumbling inside metal drums. My phone lit up with a blank text screen I'd opened last night. Nothing typed. Nothing sent. I locked it again. She noticed, I think. Her eyes darted to the screen, then to me, then away, as if she had seen something private and politely pretended she hadn't. "You ever feel like laundry is the only part of life that makes sense?" she asked suddenly. "You put things in. You wait. They come out better." I laughed, but low. "Sometimes," I said. "Other times I lose half my socks." "That's the universe taxing you," she said, looking down, smiling briefly to herself. "Order fee." I didn't know why that line stayed with me. Maybe because it sounded like something she'd learned the hard way. Her dryer beeped. She didn't move right away, she stayed still, fingers tightening slightly around her thermos. A micropause, subtle but noticeable. Like she wasn't ready to leave the quiet yet. "You mind watching my stuff?" she asked. 5 minutes. I need to grab something from the car. "Sure," I said, too quickly. My voice cracked on the S. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, go ahead." She handed me her thermos. Not because she needed to, but because she chose to. Her fingers brushed mine for half a second, warm from the metal. I pretended not to feel it. She pretended not to notice me pretending. "I'll be right back," she said. I nodded. Tried to look casual. Failed. When the door swung closed behind her, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I stared at her dryer. Then at her thermos. I turned it in my hands, trying to guess the scent, coffee with something faintly sweet. Vanilla, maybe. 4 minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "Don't panic. I just realized I never asked your name." For a moment, I thought it wasn't meant for me. Then a second message arrived: "I'm the woman with the thermos." I looked up at the glass door. She hadn't come back yet. But she was still reaching toward me, from somewhere just out of sight. And for the first time that morning, the apartment silence didn't feel so heavy anymore. She came back a few minutes later, brushing strands of wind-blown hair behind her ear, cheeks slightly flushed like she'd hurried more than necessary. "You survived," she said, taking the thermos from me. "Barely," I answered. "Your dryer tried to unionize." A quiet smile touched the corner of her mouth. She didn't open the thermos right away, she just held it against her chest, eyes lowered, almost like she needed its warmth to settle something inside herself. "I didn't mean to text you," she said. "Well, I did. But I typed it faster than I thought." "It's fine. I'm glad you did." She nodded, but her shoulders lifted with a small, reluctant inhale. Not displeased, just careful. Like she was weighing the cost of stepping even 1 inch closer. "My name's Lena," she said. "I'm Arif," I replied. Something about saying our names out loud made the space between us feel narrower, like we'd moved from being two people in adjoining machines to two people who actually existed in each other's orbit. She folded one corner of her laundry bag, smoothing it down with her palm, then smoothing it again even though it was already flat. A micro-hesitation. "You remind me of someone I used to know," she murmured. "Not in how you look. Just, your way of talking." "Good reminder or bad?" "Both," she said softly. "Most people worth remembering are both." Her honesty caught me off guard. Not dramatic. Not confessional. Just one quiet truth, offered gently. We didn't speak for a while. The machines hummed, the clock ticked too loudly, and she sipped from her thermos, blowing lightly over the rim. I tried not to stare at the way she held it with both hands, elbows tucked in, as if she were trying to make herself smaller. "Can I ask something?" I said. She didn't look up. "You can try. Why were you here so early?" Her fingers tightened around the thermos. "Couldn't sleep," she said. The house felt too alive. Too many memories moving around. I didn't push. I didn't need to. Her silence filled in the rest. Divorce, maybe. Or someone she'd lost. Or someone who'd left. Something that left echoes. When her dryer beeped again, she knelt to pull out her clothes. A sweater slipped from her arm. I caught it before it hit the floor. When our hands brushed, she didn't pull away immediately. Just a half-second of contact, warm, tentative, charged in a way neither of us acknowledged. "Thanks," she said, voice low. "Anytime." She folded the sweater slowly, smoothing each crease with her fingers more than necessary. A small ritual. Maybe a grounding one. "You know," she said, not looking at me, "you're easy to talk to. Easier than I expected. Is that good or bad?" "That's what worries me." The air between us shifted, tightened, maybe. The kind of tension that doesn't show up in movies because it's too small, too human. She closed her laundry bag, slung it over her shoulder, and paused at the door. Her eyes held mine for a long second, long enough to mean something, short enough to deny it. "I'll see you around, Arif." She said my name like she wasn't sure she should. And as she walked away, I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest, a quiet recognition. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I didn't see her for a week. Not at the laundromat. Not outside her door. Not even through the thin hallway window where the building's stray cat usually sunbathed. The silence felt heavier than it should have, settling in small corners of my day, between classes, over half-finished meals, in the seconds before I unlocked my apartment. I told myself it didn't matter. That she was just a neighbor. That last week meant nothing special. But every time I walked past her door, I slowed down. Just enough to hear if she was home. Just enough to know I cared more than I admitted. On the 8th morning, I found her standing in the lobby, holding a grocery bag with both hands like she wasn't sure what to do with it. Her eyes lifted the moment the elevator dinged open. "Oh," she said. "You're up early." She looked surprised. Then, quickly, careful. Like she'd forgotten how to act around me. "Laundry day," I lied. My bag was empty. She shifted her weight, then set the grocery bag down and pressed her palms against her thighs. A tiny, almost invisible gesture, steadying herself. "I've been meaning to return your kindness," she said. "The other morning. You helped me more than you think. You don't need to return anything." "That's the problem, Arif." Her voice faltered on my name. "When people say that." Before I could ask what she meant, the front door opened and someone from the third floor walked in, an older man who always smelled faintly of paint thinner. He nodded at us, then at her grocery bag. "Morning, Lena. Stocking up again?" Her expression tightened just slightly, a polite mask sliding into place. "Trying to," she said. He glanced between us longer than necessary. A curious flick of the eyes. Not accusing, just observant, and observant was almost worse. Lena picked up her bag and stepped back, creating a small distance between us as if she'd suddenly remembered the age gap in the brightest possible light. When the man disappeared upstairs, she let out a small breath. "Sorry," she murmured. "People like to guess stories that aren't there." "There is no story," I said. "Exactly," she replied, too quickly. "There isn't. Shouldn't be." But her hands betrayed her, thumb rubbing the edge of her grocery bag, a subtle, restless motion. I reached to hold the lobby door for her. Our fingertips brushed, barely. She froze, not dramatically, just enough that I felt her breath pause. "Lena, it's nothing," she said, stepping past me. "Long morning. Or week." A faint shake of her head. "I shouldn't have disappeared like that. You don't owe me an explanation." "That's not why I'm saying it." We lingered in the doorway, half inside, half outside, an awkward threshold no one names but everyone recognizes. Wind rushed in from the street, lifting a strand of her hair. She didn't tuck it back immediately. She looked at me instead. "Some days I don't trust myself," she said quietly. I swallowed. "With what?" She didn't answer. Just stared at my mouth for a fraction of a second, small, quick, but unmistakable. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I shifted closer without meaning to. She didn't move away. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Arif, don't." But she said it like she wanted the opposite. For a moment, one thin, breakable moment, we were inches from crossing something we couldn't uncross. Then a car horn blared outside, snapping everything back into place. She stepped back. I let my hands fall. "We should," she started. "Yeah," I said. "I know." But the unfinished words between us hung in the air, louder than anything we'd actually spoken. It happened on a Tuesday evening, one of those washed out, colorless hours when the day hasn't decided whether it's done with you yet. I found her sitting on the bench outside the building, elbows on her knees, hands clasped like she was trying to hold something still inside herself. She didn't see me at first. Or maybe she did and pretended she hadn't. "Long day?" I asked, keeping a careful distance. "Along everything," she said without looking up. I sat beside her, not too close. The kind of space you leave when you want to respect someone's quiet but also hope they'll break it. She finally glanced over. Her eyes looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. "I thought you were avoiding me," I said before I could stop myself. Her lips parted, surprise, guilt, something else. I wasn't. I was avoiding myself. The street was almost empty. A boy on a bicycle passed, tires hissing against the pavement. Lena exhaled, slow and shaky, like she was letting go of a thought she'd carried too long. "You're young," she murmured. "And you don't see it. People your age, they don't look at someone like me the way you." She stopped. Looked away sharply. I don't look at you any particular way, I said, even though we both knew that wasn't true. Exactly, she whispered. You don't realize it. A silence settled, thick enough that I could hear the soft tapping of her thumb against her knee. I wanted to reach for her hand, but my body stayed frozen, unsure whether it would comfort her or break something delicate. You know what scared me, she said. When I didn't see you around. How easily I noticed it. I swallowed. I noticed you too. More than I should have. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was trying to read something written under my skin. Her eyes softened, then hardened, then softened again in a quiet, painful loop. What do you want from me, Arif? She asked. The question wasn't accusatory. It was fragile. It trembled at the edges. I don't know, I said. Not yet. Truth, I knew. I just didn't know if I was allowed to. She leaned back against the bench, rubbing her forehead. This isn't. I'm not, another unfinished sentence. She shook her head. People my age don't get to make reckless choices. We don't get to want things without consequences. I almost told her she wasn't a consequence. But the word stuck somewhere between my ribs. You're not reckless, I said instead. She gave a small laugh. Wanting to stay here with you right now feels pretty reckless. She wasn't teasing. She wasn't dramatic. She was admitting something she hadn't meant to out loud. The street lamp flickered on above us, humming softly. The world felt strangely intimate under its light, like the two of us were standing too close to a truth neither knew how to touch. Lena, I started. She turned to me, slowly, her breath catching just slightly. Her gaze dipped, first to my eyes, then almost to my mouth, then back up. A near confession. A near surrender. Don't, she whispered again. But this time, her voice didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a plea. Or a question. One she wasn't ready to say out loud. And I wasn't brave enough to answer. Not yet. For 3 days, her door stayed shut. Lights off at hours she was usually awake. No soft shuffle of her slippers in the hallway. No thermos in her hand when the morning sun cut across the lobby. It was like she'd folded herself back into the walls, quiet, unreachable, almost erased. I tried to act normal. Or something close to it. I lingered in the lobby longer than necessary. I timed my laundry runs around when she used to show up. I even walked the long way home, just to see if her car was parked on the street. It wasn't. By the 4th day, a strange mix of hope and dread had settled under my ribs. I kept telling myself she just needed space. People do that. People disappear to breathe. But late that afternoon, as I passed her door, I noticed something new, a small white envelope wedged under the doormat. Addressed by hand. Her name written neatly. The handwriting was too careful. Too familiar. A man's handwriting. Before I could stop myself, I lifted the corner of the envelope. M. Solace. The return name on the top. I didn't recognize it, but the way her name was written, slowly, tenderly, felt like a history I didn't belong to. I dropped it instantly, guilt burning my fingertips. I was still staring at her door when the elevator dinged open behind me. Arif? Her voice. I turned. She stood there with a grocery bag hanging off one arm. No cardigan this time. Just a plain shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned in a way that looked like she did it while walking. But it wasn't her clothes that startled me. It was her distance. She didn't step closer. Didn't offer a small smile. Her posture was stiff, defensive, almost, and her eyes kept sliding away from mine, like she'd trained herself not to hold my gaze too long. You're back, I said. She nudged the grocery bag up her arm. Just needed some days. I waited for her to say more. She didn't. Are you okay? I asked. She hesitated, barely, but enough. I'm fine. Liar. Or maybe truth-teller who didn't want her truth examined. I saw an envelope at your door, I said before I could stop myself. Her face changed, not dramatically, but the way someone's face shifts when the past knocks louder than expected. It's nothing, she said quickly. Just, unfinished business. From who? She bit the inside of her cheek. Looked away. My ex-husband. The words hit harder than they should have. Not jealousy. Not heartbreak. Just, a quiet collapsing inside my chest. She set the grocery bag down, rubbing her forehead. We're not getting back together. That's not the issue. It's just, he wants to talk. About things we didn't settle. Things I don't want to drag anyone else into. Anyone else. Meaning me. She didn't say it, but the silence after did. You don't have to explain, I said. I know, she replied softly. That's what makes it harder. For a moment, it felt like she might step closer, like the space between us might fold the way it had on the bench. But she didn't. Instead, she picked up her bag and unlocked her door. I'll see you around, Arif, she murmured. She didn't look back. I went upstairs, unlocked my own door, and stared at my phone for a long time. I typed a message, if you need someone. I'm here. I didn't send it. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. She didn't answer the next day. Or the next. By the third, I stopped pretending I wasn't waiting for footsteps in the hallway, or the soft click of her thermos lid, or the way she always paused before locking her door, like she needed one last breath before stepping into the world. That evening, after pacing my apartment enough to wear down a path in the carpet, I finally walked downstairs. I didn't know what I meant to do. Knock? Pretend to check the mail I hadn't checked in a week? Pass by casually and hope the universe offered some kind of mercy? But when I reached her floor, I didn't need to knock. Her door was already open, just an inch, but enough. I hesitated. Then lifted my hand. Before I touched it, her voice came from inside. You can come in. Soft. Tired. But steady. I pushed the door lightly, stepping into a small pool of warm kitchen light. She stood by the counter, sleeves pushed up, drying her hands on a towel like she'd been trying to busy herself. The sink still ran, though nothing was under the stream. She turned it off. Set the towel down carefully. Too carefully. You showed up, she said. I didn't know if I should. I didn't know if I wanted you to. We stood a few steps apart. Not distant, just suspended. I didn't mean to disappear, she said. Old things came back. Things I thought I'd buried deep enough. Your ex? She nodded, eyes dropping. He sent another message. Not angry. Not sentimental. Just, unfinished. Her voice thinned. I hate unfinished. And you think I'm part of that? I asked quietly. Her jaw tensed. I think you're something I wasn't prepared to feel again. Not so soon. Not so strongly. The words landed somewhere low in my chest, heavy, grounding. She leaned back against the counter, gripping its edge. I keep telling myself you're young, Arif. That this is just attention. Or timing. That maybe I'm filling some empty space in your life right now. She lifted her eyes. But then I look at you, and none of those excuses feel true. I stepped closer, not all the way, just enough that she could pull back if she needed to. She didn't. "You're not filling space," I said. "You're the part one keep noticing even when everything else goes quiet." Her breath caught, barely, but enough. "That's exactly why this scares me," she whispered. I swallowed, my hands unsure of where to be. "I'm scared too." She seemed surprised by that, like the idea hadn't occurred to her. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was exposed. Two people trying to stay upright under the weight of honesty. Finally, she pushed off the counter and took one small step toward me. "Just one. Tell me something," she said. "If this, whatever this is, if it hurts later, are you sure it's something you want to risk now?" I didn't rush. Didn't romanticize. Just let the truth settle between us. "Yes," I said. "Even if it hurts." Her shoulders dropped with a slow exhale, as if she'd been holding that question for days. She reached out, not for a hug, not for a kiss. Just her hand on my forearm, light and warm, grounding in the simplest way possible. "Okay," she whispered. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a declaration. Just a human truth, offered gently. And I took her hand, just as quietly. They didn't talk for 3 days after that night. Not out of anger, more like recovery. Like two people who had finally heard the weight in each other's voices and needed time to let the echo settle. Life didn't pause, though. Monday still came. Alarms still rang at the same awful hour. The tea still steamed at 8:47 a.m., and the black coffee was still too strong. But something inside the routine had shifted, almost imperceptibly. The first time he saw her again was outside the campus gate. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just nodded. A small, quiet acknowledgement that nothing had broken, not really. That they were still allowed to exist near each other. He walked beside her. Not close, not far. Just enough. "How've you been?" he asked. "Fine," she said. But her voice wasn't tight anymore. Just tired. Honest. They walked in that usual slow pace, the one that had become theirs without either of them deciding it. And he realized something, the heaviness between them wasn't fear anymore. It was openness. A strange, careful openness, like a book someone had finally dared to keep reading. Over the next few weeks, things found their shape again. Not like before, better, but quieter. She didn't pull away when he handed her the pen she forgot. He didn't hesitate before asking if she'd eaten. They talked about little things, broken phones, new shoes, how the sky looked like wet paint that morning. No declarations. No dramatic embraces. Just two people choosing each other in the smallest, most consistent ways. One afternoon, they ended up at their bench, the one shaded by the crooked tree that always shed leaves out of season. The one where everything had almost changed. She sat first. He followed, after a breath. "It feels calmer now," she said. "Yeah," he replied. "Like we survived something." She laughed, soft, warm, private. "Feels like it." There was a pause. Not the heavy kind from before, where every second felt like a question. This one was peaceful. Rested. "I'm glad we didn't walk away," she said, looking ahead. He didn't answer immediately. He wanted to choose the right words this time, the real ones. "Me too," he finally said. "I don't want distance. Not anymore." She didn't look at him, but he saw the smallest smile pull at her cheek. A quiet acceptance. Maybe even relief. A breeze passed. A leaf drifted onto her shoulder, and he brushed it off gently. This time, she didn't flinch. She didn't pretend it meant nothing. Okay, she whispered. Just that. But it was enough. Later, when they stood to leave, their steps fell into sync easily, familiar, earned. And for the first time in a long time, the world didn't feel paused. It felt like it had finally finished the sentence. And only they knew what that sentence meant. Did this story stay with you? Tell me, what kind of quiet, real love story should I write next? Soft strangers? Slow burn friends? Difficult timing? I'll craft the next one exactly in this style.